What's going on, YouTube? This is BoxingWave. It's kind of late. It's about 2 a.m. and I'm probably not going to upload this now. It's just too late. I'm going to go to bed soon. But yo, I wanted to make this video while everything was still fresh on my mind, right? So we know that Canelo beat Callum Smith Saturday night, and we know that, Triple G also won Friday night and everything. And, as I was going through the comments from my videos and I was looking at the comments from a couple of polls that I posted an old poll. I did a poll, the other day about, who Canelo should face, and stuff like that. Who should be next? Who do you guys want to see the most? And the thing is, I uploaded a review of the fight earlier in the day. And what took me some time before making that video is all day I was thinking, who should Canelo face, at this point? Because you got all the guys at 160 that people want to see him face, like Andrade, you got Charlo, and their names are going to keep coming up. Plus, you got Triple G for a third fight. Then you got the guys at 168. He beat one of them. He beat Callum Smith. But you still got Benavidez. You still got Plant. You still got Billy Joe Saunders. And then you got the couple guys up at 175 that names always going to pop up. You got Beterbiev. You have Bivol. So you got all these fighters, right? And then you got a few that I didn't even mention. Someone mentioned Chris Eubank Jr. I seen somebody else mention Yildirim, so for the WBC mandatory. So you got other names out there. But as I was thinking this and I was reading the comments, and some of you guys brought up this point, and it's true, and it's a point that I brought up in the past. Canelo has a million options. You really can't please everyone. You can only fight one fighter. Even if he were to fight 3 fighters this year coming up, you still can't please everyone, because I just named about 8 to 10 fighters just now alone. All right, guys that he's still having faced, or guys that, Triple G, who he already had 2 fights with. You really can't please everyone. All right, we know this. But people are always, they're not going to be satisfied. Never, especially if he keeps winning and he keeps being dominant, right? Now, we have preferences. I speak on preferences all the time. I always tell you guys, hey, I think he should fight this guy because I think this guy will give him a tougher challenge than this guy. Now, there's no way for me to really prove that. I'm basing that solely on the eye test most of the time. Some of these guys don't have better resumes than other fighters, but I still go with what I think would be a tougher challenge for Canelo, right? Could I be wrong? Yes. Did I think Sergey Kovalev was going to beat Canelo going into that fight? Yeah, I thought it was 50-50, but I was still leaning towards Kovalev because of the reach, the height, all of that stuff, right? We saw what happened. So, with all that being said, these other fighters at 168, at 160, at wherever, it's their job to do whatever they have to do to sell themselves. And the best way to do it is by beating other top fighters. And unfortunately, none of them are really doing that. None of them are doing it. They're all taking easier fights, hoping they land Canelo. Pretty much. And some of them are even turning down Canelo because the fight is not really going at their time or with their terms. So what these fighters don't understand, they all want the same fight, but leading up to that one fight, that mega fight with Canelo, they're fighting the very easiest of opponents. And the thing is, even if Canelo is to fight someone like a Rocky Fielding, okay, and I'm going to bring him up. I brought him up because he's a fighter that no one wanted to see Canelo face. He's still, his weakest opponent is still better than what these other fighters, some of these other fighters are fighting. You know? And he usually don't fight the Rocky Fieldings. That was just one fight. That was like weak compared, to the public. But everybody else, they get to pick and choose to fight whoever they want to fight. They're all bad. Most of the time, most of these guys I just named, the opponents are not good at all. Some of these guys are random journeymen that they pick out and they're fighting. Like, these guys are champions and they get to fight whoever they choose. Yet Canelo, at the bare minimum, he's fighting a championship level fighter. It might be the worst of them sometimes. It might not be the best champion out of the four. But at bare minimum, he's taking a better challenge than everybody else is doing. And I respect him for that. It's just like Floyd, and I'm seeing so much in Canelo, that I've seen in Floyd as far as the opponents he's choosing. People are just never going to be happy with the timing. And you know what? I nitpick. I do. Because I have Canelo at such a high standard that I feel like he's at a point now that he's so good that I have to nitpick and say, like, hey, I think this champion would be a tougher fighter than this champion. But he's still fighting the champion, It's like when Floyd said, you know what? I'm going to deal with Kareem Mayfield, or I'm going to fight an Andre Berto. And I remember when he said that, and people like me and other channels at the time were upset with that comment. Because we hold Floyd at such a high standard. At that point, when he made those comments, we completely forgot about the fact that he just is coming off a win against Manny Pacquiao. He already had beaten Canelo before that, And we complain about guys like Marcos Maidana. We complain about guys like Robert Guerrero at the time. But these guys were champions. They weren't coming off of horrible losses. These guys were proven guys. It might not be the very best and most dangerous fighter. Some people bring up Margarito. Some people bring up Paul Williams. Some people bring up other fighters that Floyd should have faced at an earlier time in their career or whatever. But at the end of the day, what Floyd was doing is reminding me of what Canelo is doing. What Canelo's doing is reminding me of what Floyd did. People were never satisfied. But if you look at the opponents that these other fighters are facing, some of them, it's not their fault. Some of them are really boogeymen, and some fighters are really ducking them. So I can't blame everything on these fighters. But at the end of the day, they're all sitting around waiting to get picked. And while they're sitting around, they're taking the easiest challenges that they could, because they don't want to mess up an opportunity at fighting Canelo by taking the L. And that's the truth. And while they're sitting around waiting, Canelo can say, you know what? He's looking to choose, I'm going to take that guy. And it might not be the guy coming off of his biggest win. It might not be that guy that people feel is the most challenging. It could be whoever they want, or whoever Canelo wants, because at the end of the day, Canelo has already proven himself many times over. I was on D-Style's podcast the other day. Shout out to D-Style Boxing. And the one thing, when the question was asked about who I feel is the pound for pound number one, and we were going back and forth between Canelo and Bud Crawford, who we all know that Bud is like my favorite active fighter. All right. As far as the eye test, I give it to Bud. But the eye test is just my personal opinion on what I see in the ring. All right. Against the opponents he's faced. Okay. But as far as resume and someone that's proven, Canelo by far has a better resume to me, because the one thing that I said about Canelo and the difference between Canelo and everybody else that's up there in these pound for pound lists, he's already fought and beat people that I either didn't think he would fight or didn't think that he would beat. Now, he lost to Floyd Mayweather. Cool. But he fought Lara, a fighter that many people at that time thought he was ducking for years. All right? Whether I think he won or not, it doesn't matter. On paper, he beat Lara. Okay? Triple G, another fighter that we thought he was ducking for years. Remember, he went up and fought Chavez Jr. at 164 before fighting Triple G. He fought at a higher weight before coming down and fighting Triple G at 160. And before that, a lot of people just thought Canelo was ducking, including Cotto and all these other fighters that was passing around the belt when at 160 without fighting Triple G. Remember, Sergio Martinez had it. Cotto went straight to him to beat him. Okay? And then Canelo went to Cotto. All right? And they were fighting Daniel Gill and all this stuff. Remember those years? Well, Triple G already had his run at that time. So when Canelo had the belt, everybody wanted him to fight Triple G. He didn't fight him right away, but he eventually got to him. Now, I don't think he won the first fight. But he fought him. It was another fighter that I didn't think Canelo would win or fight, Give him credit. At least he fought him. He fought Kovalev. He's taken on challenge throughout his career against tough fighters. And I can't say the same for the rest of these guys. A lot of these guys are trying to take shortcuts to get to the finish lines. And that's the problem. I'm a little tired, so if I say anything, I am tired. But a lot of these guys are trying to take shortcuts to Canelo, and that's the problem. And I was listening to when they were interviewing Teofimo Lopez and on the Canelo card, and I heard the interviewer go to him, how does it feel, going from being the hunter to being the hunted? And you know why he's the hunted now? Because he beat the man in his division. He beat the man not only in the division, but he beat one of the top pound for pound fighters in the world. Wherever you rank Lomachenko, Teofimo Lopez beat him. Okay? And now everybody wants a piece of him. You got everybody from 140. You got guys like Mikey Garcia who already went up mentioning him. Devin Haney, Tank, Mikey, all these fighters at 135. All these guys that's around that division has mentioned Teofimo Lopez in some way. Now he's the hunted. It's similar to Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman was the hunter, until he started winning his titles. Once he won his 2 titles, he became the hunted. That's when he started having all these injuries and stuff like that, He finally got his opportunity to fight Manny Pacquiao, but at that time, Keith wasn't the same. And even though Manny was older, Manny is still very good. So Manny won the fight. But the thing is, I like Teofimo Lopez. You know what sets him apart from the rest of these other guys? Is that he went directly at Lomachenko while other fighters were trying to avoid him. Tank Davis. Tank has been around for a minute now. He beat Pedraza. Once he beat Pedraza in the fashion that he did, I thought right then and there, he could fight a Lomachenko whenever he's ready. That's when people started talking. But he was fighting these guys from a lower division that was blowing up, then coming up and meeting him and stuff like that. Lomachenko fought Pedraza, didn't look as impressive, you know, coming off of that injury and everything. And people were like, look, they were comparing the two. But guess what? Tank still didn't fight him. But Teofimo Lopez was set in the trap. He was so confident in himself that he was calling out Lomachenko from the beginning. I remember the old interviews. He just didn't think Loma was that good. And these guys baited Lomachenko into a fight, talking trash to him. And I'm still going to do a video about Lomachenko. I didn't forget. But they baited him right into that fight. And he won. He won. He won the fight. And this is why people are respecting him more than that's the best win that I've seen, or that's the most credible win that anybody has got in boxing in a while. That win right there. The most credible win that anyone got in boxing in a minute. A true pound for pound fighter. He beat him. And convincingly too. He outboxed him. But what are the guys at 168 doing? What have any of these guys at 160? And that's including Triple G. Because I love Triple G. He's done a lot. You know, he's fought some good fighters. And I respect him. I don't think he lost the fights and everything. But you know what? At the end of the day, Meta, Steve Rose, you know, I know those were tune-ups and cool. You know, you working, you got a new trainer, you working on some things. But even Canelo didn't stoop that low. Canelo never stooped that low. Rocky Fielding is Liam Smith. No, they're not on that low of a level. You know, Triple G was in there toying with him. Looking like a slick fighter. He's not that. But against Meta, he looked that way. Steve Rose had no respect for him. You know, and Charlo is still there. Okay, with a title. Andre is still there with a title. The three of y'all hold titles in the same division, and the three of you are not fighting each other. Triple G is waiting on Canelo. Charlo is waiting on Canelo. Andre is waiting on Canelo. What are they doing? What are they doing? Now, I know Canelo had an opportunity to become undisputed at 160 by fighting Andre next. We were making videos about that back then. Okay? He didn't do it. I didn't like it. He didn't do it. Wish he did. He fought Sergey Kovalev, went to 175. I would have preferred if he fought Andre at 160. I said that back then. You guys saw the poll. Most people wanted the Andre fight at that time. But look at 168. The same thing is happening. You got all these champions up there. None of them are fighting each other. And there's no excuses because there's a pair of them on PBC and there's another pair of them that was on DAZN, Matchroom. Now, Callum Smith was the lucky one in the mix. He got the fight. He got the fight. But now that that fight is over and Canelo dominated another tall, big opponent that everybody thought was too big for him, another young, fresh guy dominated him. Now we're back to square one. Who does Canelo face next? Well, what if he doesn't? What if Canelo said, you know what, I'm not going to fight any of these guys. I'm not going to fight any of them. You know, because they're not fighting each other. What are they going to do? Benavidez and Plant, why are you two not fighting each other? What's your excuse? Saunders and Smith, why didn't you two fight each other before the Canelo fight? Andre and Charlo, you guys got beef with each other. Why haven't you two fought yet? What's up with you guys? Triple G, what are you going to just wait around for the trilogy? Well, if you don't get the trilogy, what kind of fighters are you going to fight if you don't get the trilogy with Canelo? If you don't get that, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Is your career going to be based on what moves Canelo was going to be making? Are you going to keep taking easier fights, hoping that you get that fight again? What are you going to do? You're older. You're running out of time. What are you going to do? Now, if he gets it, he gets it. But if he doesn't, what is he going to do? Is he going to try to unify? What exactly are you going to do at this point? You know, like, we could say so much about all these other fighters, but they seem to be very comfortable where they are. Just taking these easy fights in between, hoping they get picked. Sounds a lot like Floyd Mayweather. It's like the whole division is frozen. Let's see who Floyd Mayweather picks out of this lottery here. You guys are waiting to see what Canelo is doing. How Canelo's, you watching him so close. Hopefully he picks me. Well, why don't you do something that will get the fans to pay attention to you? Right? Instead of tweeting or blogging and doing videos, why don't you do something? You know? Why don't you, like the fans that keep saying, like Andre, for example, for the fans that keep saying Andre ain't fight no one on his resume, like no one, like I want to see that fight. I think Andre would be tough for Canelo, right? Can't prove it, but I think he would be. I think Charlo would be too. I think those two would give a better fight than Callum Smith. I would have told you that before the fight. But I'm basing that off what I think, of what I seen them do in the ring. I can be completely wrong, or I could be right, or they could even do better than what I expected. I have no idea. But in the meantime, why don't you two do something to sell yourselves? Why don't you two become the hunted? Make it where Canelo's like, you know what? This guy is beating everybody up. They want me to fight him, so I'm going to fight him. I'm not going to wait around and just pick whoever I want to pick. Everybody's talking about this guy, so I'm going to fight this guy. Like Triple G, when he fought Triple G, everybody was talking about Triple G because of who he fought leading up to that point. But everybody else is just like, there's not one of them that stands above the rest. Saunders, no. Andre, no. Charlo, no. Plant, no. Benavidez, no. Chris Eubank Jr., nope. None of them are standing out at this point. You know who stands out? Better BF. Because he unified. It's just that he's higher up. He's at 175. And he's the best at 175. Right? Now, I don't know if he's beating. I'm not trying to go who's better between him and Bivol. No, I'm saying better BF is more proven than Bivol because he unified against another undefeated top fighter at 175. Vosdick. And retired him. Stopped him. That's like eye-opening. That's like pound for pound level type of win. What are these guys doing? What are the rest of them doing? You know? Now, when it comes to being the hunted, it's not going to always play in your favor. Better BF is not the hunted. People fear him for real because of what he actually done. They fear him. They don't really want to fight him. But the rest of these guys, you got the high risk, low reward type of guys, you know, but yo, man, in the meantime, they're not really doing anything. You know, and I know I'll keep repeating the same thing over, but I really can't make a strong case for not one of those fighters that I named. Not one. Not one. I say with Triple G, I think Triple G makes the most sense simply because people feel that Triple G won both fights or at least won one of those fights. So there's people that feel that way, and they were both great fights, and they were both proven successful pay-per-views. They both were Fight of the Year candidates, especially the second one. Excuse me. So you can make the strongest case for Triple G. The problem is people are not excited for it because they just want to see something different. And they're not expecting any difference in the outcome because of the way that the first two played out. Canelo did so much better in the rematch that people feel like even if you think Triple G was won, it was very close, it was debatable. Canelo, Triple G is older now. Canelo's probably going to get them this time around, So, look, man, these fighters at 168, and shout out to the person that hit me on the live commentary the other night that told me that, the best divisions like 154, 140, 118, and 135. Whoever that person was, he had exact 4 divisions that were the best right now. I would squeeze in 175, but I'm still waiting to see a little bit more. But 175 is in that, discussion. But these guys at 160, 168, heavyweight, welterweight, what are they doing? What are they doing? You meaning to tell me there's a guy in your division that people think can beat you and you're cool with him walking around and people saying that without doing something about it? Nah. I know Canelo gets a lot of slander for a lot of reasons. And sometimes I pick on Canelo. I do. I pick on him a little bit just because I have my preferences and stuff. But at the end of the day, if we're just looking at his resume, leagues above everybody else that's currently boxing. It's not even close. It's not even close. Unless we're talking Manny Pacquiao, it's not even close. So let's stop fooling ourselves, man. All right? I'm going to leave it at that, man. Let me get some rest. Have a good night. Peace.